So this is literally the easiest way to think about this. Ask whatever you want.
Perfect. Well, Anton,
Yeah.
you own a team now, and you're with Keller Williams, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Marysville. And you started in 2003?
Yes, ma'am. Yep.
So when you started,
Yep.
first of all, why did you get into real estate? It's always the question everyone wants to know.
We were walking through Thrifty Foods in Arlington, Washington. That doesn't exist anymore. And I said to my dad, hey, how do I make a big bag of money? I want to be rich. I want to be wealthy. And I'm like 12. And my dad, whether this was a joke or wisdom, I choose to look at it as wisdom, grabbed the Fortune 500 list off of the magazine rack.
Smart.
And he handed me the magazine and he said, hey, read this list. These people figured out how to make money. Maybe you can copy them. Once again, I don't know if he was tormenting me being a little teenager or that was his method, but I actually took it to heart.
He was probably hoping you would.
Yeah, I was like, well, my dad told me so. So I went home and I went through the whole list and I was like, okay, stock market. I don't know enough about the stock market. Entrepreneur. Cool. I could do that. Inherit. That one's not going to happen. and then it was like real estate. And I was like, oh, real estate. And all over the list was real estate. Mm-hmm. And so I actually decided like right then as a young teenager, I was like, I'm going to invest in real estate. I went to school to be a biochemist. I was working for a biotech startup in Seattle and they got bought and I was jobless.
That happens in that kind of industry in tech too. So
yes.
There you go.
Yeah, all the time. So it's 2003. And I said to my wife, hey, I'm going to go work in real estate for 6 months and then I'll go be a drug pusher. Cause I had friends working at Pfizer and GSK and Corning and stuff like that. In the early 2000s, those were great jobs. I was like, I'm just going to do it for 6 months, babe. And then I'll go right back.
So you didn't have any kids at the time?
No kids.
You had been married for how long?
We weren't even married yet.
Oh.
Yeah, we were.
So I'm going to age you. How old were you?
24.
Oh, that was a good age to start. Anyway, go ahead.
And so what happened is I got into real estate. I worked for a John L. Scott and 2 weeks in the business, I sell a waterfront home.
Wow.
And I double popped it.
Good job.
And the brokerage I was working for at that time almost functioned like a team. So everyone was on a 50-50 split, but I still got a mammoth check. And I looked down and I was like, $18,000 2 weeks.
What was the first thing you bought with it that you wouldn't have purchased?
I didn't buy anything.
You didn't?
No, I shoved it into savings. But I literally,
Smart.
I go 18,000 2 weeks and the previous year I'd made like 50 grand.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, well, this is the best game I've ever invented. I'm never going back. That's actually like how I got into real estate. I came to real estate to be a real estate investor. And then I got the taste of real estate, the bug. I know you have it too.
I have the bug. I can't leave it.
Yeah. You've tried.
I tried. I keep coming back. Yeah.
And so then I was like, okay, well, if this is what I'm going to do, how do I do this as a business? Happened to read the Red Book.
How did you get that when you were at John L. Scott?
I went to one of the panel events that a KW was having. Mm-hmm. They talked about the Red Book, and being so not that far away from college, I was like, wait a second. There's a book on how to sell real estate.
There's a how-to book.
Yeah.
I love it.
So I went home and I read the book. Then I called every franchise and pretended I wanted to buy one. And yeah, and then everyone sent me their franchise models. And so I read all their franchise models and I basically walked into the KW 2 weeks later and was like, hey, this is where I want to work. I'll be here in 2 weeks when these listings sell. So that was how it started. And I was all started part-time. I went back to work in the restaurant that I was working at. I'd work there 30 hours a week and I'd do real estate 35, 40 hours a week. And then I saved my pennies and went full-time in year 2.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you did end up buying the franchise.
Yes, I did end up buying a franchise. Yeah.
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 Everything that you wrote on your list is coming true, right?
And that's actually, thank you for bringing that up. One thing that I think people will greatly underestimate in their careers is if you write affirmations about who you want to be as your future self. And so I moved over to KW in 2004 and I still have this hot pink sticky note. It was hot pink. It's kind of Pepto-Bismol pink.
It's a little faded from the...
Because it's been stuck to the wall for so long. And it says, I'm a deal maker. I'm an investor. I'm an opportunity magnet. And that was kind of like my first step stab at affirmations.
And you knew how to write them already. I am.
Yes.
Not I will or I shall. It's I am.
The team leader, Dory, at the time.
Dory, yeah.
Dory, yeah, she's amazing.
Dory.
She actually helped with that thought process right in the beginning.
Perfect.
And so planted that seed in order for me to get moving. And I knew I wanted to own like a franchise. And eventually in 2005, I was able to purchase my first shares, into one. And so, now we have parts of 2 KWs. But yes, it literally started with just the intention of this is what I'm going to go do.
And that was when you were 12.
As crazy as that sounds.
That's awesome.
And once again, I don't know if my dad was joking with me, and it was just, here's how I get my teenager to, be quiet, or if that was like divine intervention or just sheer wisdom on his part. Because a lot of things that he did through my life were very, very smart, even though he didn't always give a lot of color or background or outline to them. It was like, here's the guidance, go do something.
Wow. Well, he probably saw something in you that he knew was going to happen. Okay, so let's go to your business growth.
Yep.
Since you started in 2003, year one, you still worked. You were part-time, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yep.
How many deals did you do that year?
So we did 13 deals that year part-time. And then the next year, 21. Next year, 42, 70, and then 07 hit.
Yeah.
And so basically in 07, a large chunk of our business was new construction. And then, new construction, the lights shut off here in the Seattle Metro.
Yes. I was doing a plat, and I told the builder when we first started, you're going to have to reduce all the prices by this much. He said, I'm not going to. And I said, well, I'm not going to sit there all day.
Yes.
Sorry.
Exactly.
Yeah, because I knew what was coming down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the lights turned off on that part of the market. So, our production, everything dropped. And then we started doing builder developer bailouts. And then we went into REOs. Our foray into REOs was we ran a giant BPO sweatshop.
You did.
Yes.
I know. I remember. I remember this. And when you did your first 13 deals, did you have any help?
No.
Just you? Did you use a transaction coordinator?
Nope.
Okay. And you were part-time?
Yes, ma'am.
Wow. How many were buyers and how many were sellers? Do you remember?
I think it was probably about an even mix.
Okay.
The majority of my business right in the beginning came from I was willing to sit down and make phone calls.
So you Forrest Gumped it. You just did what everybody told you to do. That's what I call it. Be Forrest Gump.
It was Forrest Gump at his finest.
Because you just were told to do that, and you did, right?
My whole business changed, though, like when I moved over to KW, because there was a model, there was a method, there was a system. Really what it was the team leader at the time was like, okay, what is your business? And I was like, I don't know. And she's like, okay, how do you get it? I was like, I just call people. Who are you calling? Anyone. People out of the phone book, cold calling. She's like, oh, you're not calling with a purpose. And I was like, no, like anyone I talk to, I just tell them I'm in real estate and
wow. Okay.
And that's how I get business. And she's like, okay, so let's get purposeful. So basically I started calling FSBOs, expireds, and then hunting for vacant land and investments. And so started that kind of vacant land and investment stuff right there in the beginning. The original John L. Scott I worked for had some new construction guys, and they were awesome. And so I started getting my taste into new construction then. When I moved over to the KW, that's when Mike and Roy were really big into new construction.
Into it, I know, yeah.
They were doing hundreds of those units. And so I said to Mike one day as he was walking by, I was like, hey, Mike, where are you going?
What's a good word?
Yeah, what's a good word? And he goes, well, I'm going to go look at this piece of land. I said, okay, can I follow you around?
Can I go?
Yeah.
That's so cute.
And
you were still really young.
I was
25?
25 at this time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. That must have made him feel really good. Somebody wants to,
Yeah. And
cool.
Still a good friend today, still business partner. Matter of fact, we may do this townhome project together that we're looking at right now. And really with that is I just followed him around, sold him a bunch of projects, sold other builders projects, and called FSBOs and expireds.
So you never really called your sphere of influence? Because you grew up here, right?
I totally grew up here.
Okay.
In all humbleness and bluntness, I was too embarrassed to call my sphere of influence in my early 20s.
I was too. It's okay. Everybody is, I think.
And so, I didn't want to do that. So I chose the complete opposite. Let's just call absolute random strangers who don't know who I am.
But they had their hand up.
Yes.
They wanted to sell.
Yeah.
They either weren't successful or they were trying it on their own.
Yeah, that was the FSBOs and the expireds, but like hunting land or investment deals, none of that was on the market. None of them had raised their hands. We were just strictly tracking them down. Mostly at that time was out of tax records, lists from title companies, old building permits, things like that.
Wow. Well, no, I would have never thought about the old building permits. That's cool. Okay, so question, where does your business come from now? I mean, that was then.
Yep.
And now you have how many people on your team?
So on our team right now, we have one full-time ISA.
Now explain what an ISA is for people that...
Inside sales, aka telemarketing.
Okay.
We have a database manager.
Full-time?
Yep.
Perfect.
Marketing person. And then a transaction coordinator and a CFO and a team leader who does essentially all the recruiting, training, accountability.
So you have 5 staff?
Yeah. I believe, hold on, we're at 7 full-time agents right now.
That's fantastic. And all of them are producing.
And all of them are producing in one form or another. Our business right now, here's where it comes from. It comes from our sphere of influence because we finally got better at chatting with people we know. I waited too long on that one.
That's okay. At least you're doing it now. That's awesome.
Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm. Social media, internet, so just pay-per-click leads, SEO. We still do a ton of cold calling, FSBOs, expireds, circle calling, large list generation, and open houses and new construction. Okay. So
wow. So everything, basically.
Not everything. You know, there's like 6 main buckets, and then there's a couple things that come out of the other things, but it's mostly sphere of influence is, you know, it's a third of our business now.
Yeah, that's good.
And at times, in certain months, it'll hit 50% of the business versus, you know, back in my first few years, it was like 1 or 2 deals. You know, that was a mistake.
Well, and why do you say, because that could have been something a
mistake people make as they're starting their career and even as they develop their career is they don't maintain relationships with people who already know, like, love, and trust them. And those relationships, as you grow in your career, your understanding of the business, realize your network is also growing. Your friend, she started at the front desk, is literally now the HR manager. And so,
then now she has all these people she's moving in.
And so that's probably one of the biggest mistakes I made in real estate was just not diving into that sphere of influence. So when someone joins our team, we have a large scale plan that we strictly launch against their sphere of influence in order to capitalize on people that already know, like, love, and trust them.
So how many people are in your sphere of influence that you drip on now?
Inside our database total, there's about 44,000 people that we have contact information for. And those are people that registered at some point for something.
Right.
Out of those, there's actually probably only about 800 like close core people, but that's
great. According to, how much the MRA book or the Red Book has changed was how many deals per 12 people in your database. Now it's 1 deal for 16. It used to be 2 deals for 12.
Yeah.
So it's still a really good business, even if you just did that, except people move away.
So I think you have to always be adding people to your network.
Yeah.
And then I think you need to classify people inside of there too, because there's different levels of network connections. There's people you've known forever, but there's also people who are high value targets that you need to build a better relationship with. And there's people in your network who they want to have a relationship with you. You just don't communicate enough with them.
So how do you communicate with them now?
So basically, phone calls, emails, text messages, social messages. People underestimate commenting with your sphere of influence on their social, and then DMs. And this morning, I dropped my son off and I'm sitting in the parking lot at the school, and I'm just, because I was going to turn on a YouTube video real quick, and a notification popped up and I see Stephen Pilkington liked your message. Stephen's one of my friends. So I think a lot of things, and he's another real estate broker in Denver, Colorado, phenomenal guy. But what a lot of people do is they look at that message and they go, well, that's nice. When that person liked or commented on one of your posts, call them. So what I do every day.
Oh, that's such a good idea. I don't do that.
Every day, one a day that sends me a DM, a like, a comment. If I have the person's phone number, I call them. And even if they don't answer, I send the same text message. Hey, I'm just checking in, wanted to harass you, see how you're doing.
Oh, that's perfect. Harass you.
Yeah.
I'm going to use that too. Thank you.
But that's also my persona.
Right.
I'm a little wound up, a little crazy.
So people like, you're calling me again? Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't call me a stalker, please. Where in your career did you decide to get help, and what was the first thing you did for leverage?
So in year 2, when I was full-time, as the business was growing, because it almost...
You were doing 21 deals that year?
It almost doubled. I had been in the business full-time like 4 months, and I said to the team leader, how do I grow? And they go hire an assistant. I said, okay. And so I put an ad out, and I talked to 4 people, and I didn't do career visioning.
Well, they did. Did they have it? Oh, it was called something else then.
It was called Recruit Select.
Recruit Select, yeah.
My hiring process was like, oh, I like you.
Uh-oh.
You're cool. Let's rock and roll.
How many people did you go through when you finally found the right one?
I was actually very blessed. The first person I hired was awesome. She was, for me at that moment, what I needed as a young individual and also what my business needed. So she was supportive, motherly, solved problems, and put together details.
I love that. You found the right person right out of the gate.
I did interview 5 people. So, there it wasn't like, but it was still just, it was luck. There's no skill here.
Divine intervention. Like
Divine intervention. Thank you, God.
Dad was there helping you out.
Well,
he was.
Yeah, he was around then. So that's really what caused the business to double then. And later on that year, we started hunting for our first buyer's agent.
Okay, so you're brand new in the business today, let's say.
Yep.
When would you hire that first assistant, or how would you do it now?
If I was brand new in the business, like I'm just getting started today, I would join a team. In all bluntness, I'd work for me. I could kill it inside of my own system with no risk, nothing, and just make a ton of money. So that's what I would do today is I would join a larger team, or I'd quickly build one. So because those systems and processes and the leverage and the machine and the network those teams have is unbelievable. So
yes.
Let's just say I'm a single agent and I'm not going to join a team and I want to build it. If that was a process I was going through, I would go to every class, I would read every book, I'd instantly get a coach, and then 3 to 6 months later, as soon as I had enough money in the bank, I'd hire someone.
So your coaching, before I ask you that question, I forgot to ask you one thing. What was your average price when you first came in the business versus now?
Oh, our average price was like $160,000. And then our average price last month was $712,000.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And the average in Lake Stevens, I think, is that. So.
Yeah. Lake Stevens is a little higher.
Marysville, it's like 565.
Yeah. Marysville's in the 6s. And then what ends up bringing our average price down is land. So we'll do a piece of land and it'll be $200,000. And so when we're talking about average price, we just squish them all together.
Sure.
If you're new and you come in and you just really focus on sphere of influence, making cold calls, doing open houses, you can generate income within that first 90 days to 6 months. You could do this on a team or as a single agent, but we're using the single agent example. As soon as I had the money, I would go hire an executive assistant. Real estate agents are good at sales, bad at paperwork. So they need someone to take care of these details and just keep selling. What that does then is as their sales goes up, their confidence goes up, their skill level goes up. And as that skill level goes up, if someone is over here, the right-hand man, the right-hand woman who is their EA is taking care of everything and repackaging it, they have the ability to accelerate their development by 2 to 10-fold.
Yes, I agree.
Otherwise, here's what they do, Ivy. They start, they stop, they start, they stop.
I wonder who that sounds like. Me.
Not just you, all brokers.
I know, a lot of people.
We all do it. It's humans by nature because we get a bunch of business and then we want to tend to the business and then we have no business. But if you know I've got to pay this awesome person's salary right here and I got to keep this moving, that little bit of pressure, I think, is actually helpful in the dynamic. That first year working part-time, I saved all that money.
Because you were able to live on your other job.
I lived on my other job.
Oh, perfect.
So then when I went full-time, I had money in the bank. Then when I started getting momentum, because, I was worried I wasn't going to get momentum. You're human. Then I was able to be like, okay, I have money to go hire this admin. And you have to think about it, and I'm going to use today's dollars, not $2003.
Sure, yeah.
What's a good person cost today?
$80,000 a year, right?
Probably.
A really good person, maybe even more.
$5 to $10,000 a month. Okay, somewhere in there. So you look at that and go, okay, what would I have to do in order to justify that? Well, I need 1 to 2 closings a month in order to justify that. And whatever production you're doing now, you should be able to triple the production with that person in your life. Otherwise, what you're doing is you're falling into another major trap. That trap is what they do is, and this is all agents, all brokers, is they hire the person and then they stop doing these things that made them productive and they start just paying attention to that person, or they go do just these fun activities. Real estate is manual labor. It's a really weird version of it.
That is hilarious. I never heard it said like that. But yes, it is. You come in and you do the same thing every day, over and over.
I'm a weird version of a framer.
And every morning you wake up and you're unemployed.
Yes, ma'am. Oh, well, so well said, Ivy. We wake up, we're unemployed.
You got to hurry up and get a job.
Got to hurry up and find someone to employ me. And that manual labor that we do every day is lead generation, lead follow-up, lead conversion, database management, negotiations, setting appointments. If we're not doing that, we're not creating that future pipeline.
Okay, so you talked about a coach. You hired a coach within how many?
I did not. I did not hire a coach until I was beat up and physically dying in 2009.
The team leader coached you.
The team leader coached me, and then some of the ALC coached me, and a few other mentors coached me. There was a lot of people helping. When you pay for it, you respect it more.
That's true.
Once again, in hindsight, knowing what I know today, I would have hired one in 2004. The mistake I made was I waited until the market crashed, and now the market's crashing. So in 2009, I'm working 100 hours a week. I'm sleeping under the desk, and we met shortly after that.
Yeah, I think I started in Keller Williams. I came to your team.
Yeah.
Because I was doing the same thing, floundering.
What happened then was one of my mentors tricked me into a coaching call.
Who was that?
It was Mike Hansen. So
Yeah.
he knew what I needed, and he literally just said, hey, on your calendar Wednesday at 12:30, you need to meet with someone. I said, great, sounds good. I didn't bother to look at what it was.
No questions asked,
No
nothing?
questions asked. This is my friend, my mentor, my partner in crime. My phone rings at 12:30. It's a coach.
Who was it?
Mr. Fleming. 5 minutes into this, I'm cursing under my breath, and 5 minutes into it, I go, yep, I need this, sign me up. And part of it was I was working too much. I was overweight. My relationships with my family and my wife were out of alignment. I wasn't working out and I wasn't eating healthy. And so I stressed out. I had a choice in 2009, and I get it. It was the recession and everything was just, yeah, exactly. So everything was falling apart, but I wasn't taking care of myself and home base. And so the very first thing he says is, he said, you're going to go on a date with your wife. And I was like, what? And I'm throwing this giant fit.
I can't do that. I have too much work to do.
Bingo. But we started getting my life dialed back in. Mm-hmm. And as my personal life got dialed back in, my business started going through the roof.
And why do you think that was? How's the correlation?
I think when our personal life gets so out of alignment, I think we forget who we are. We lose our vision. We lose our goals. Your energy level goes down. I mean, I think I was eating the Burger Mill like 2, 3, 4 days a week.
I'd never even eaten there, but yeah, okay. Is it good?
It was phenomenal. Okay. I love ghetto cheeseburgers.
I do too. Oh my gosh, I love them.
But I think that you have to have that personal part of your life in alignment in order to get the professional part of your life to move at the highest level. Because as we started drawing lines in my personal life, I started drawing lines and holding people accountable and things accountable in my professional life.
So you were qualifying leads better. You were talking to
Everything.
your assistants in a different way.
Yes.
I get it. Totally.
Yeah.
Now, fast forward, what would you look for in an assistant or the first hire? Now that you know what to ask, do you do career visioning now?
Yes, ma'am. So for every person we go to hire, we do career visioning and depth hiring process and just follow the whole system. My idea for an EA every single time is I look at this individual as a CEO in training. And that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for someone who could run one of our businesses. Because if you're going to be directly tied to me, doing everything we do, following up with everything I need you to follow up with, I'm training you to think how I think. Mm-hmm. And if that's the right individual, I then want to create an opportunity for them to grow to be able to run something.
How do you find that though? I mean, that's very specific.
It's very specific. And you've got to be okay with, a lot of people will hire an executive assistant who is not as aggressive or as responsive as that person may be. I want a person who they're like me. And so you need to find, there's 3 types of talent, right? We've got proven talent, emerging talent, and then unproven.
So you need emerging talent, I would
You
assume.
need somewhere between the unproven to the emergent. Absolutely correct. I'd like them on the latter part of unproven, moving into emerging or just starting emerging, because then what happens is you guys can grow together. Now, let me flip this around on its head too. Just because I said that, there are times in your business you don't have time to grow the unproven or emerging talent. You need to just go pay the $150,000 a year and hire the right person, bring them in now, because you don't have the time. So part of this depends on your time frame.
But that's a red light. They teach you the red light, green light budgeting situation, which means you don't hire until you know. How do you know that you're going to have the money if you don't already have it, if you're playing red light?
I think you should take it as a calculated risk. Okay. So let's say that person is, $7,000 a month. If they're $7,000 a month and my risk is I need to get 2 deals in 3 months in order to be able to pay for this person. In 90 days, would you know if that person was talented? Yes or yes?
And you could get rid of them if you needed to. And so I remember hearing someone say you really only have to have 1 month of their income because you're going to know in a month.
You're going to know in a month. You're going to know in the first few weeks. Mm-hmm. But just to kind of continue with the example, the idea is if I've got my 2 months of their salary sitting there, I'm going to know very quickly, so my risk is not that big. And then if they work out, my income by 90 days should be starting to trend in an upward direction. Once again, the biggest mistake we've seen owning brokerages, coaching other teams, and our own business partners is they take their foot off the gas when they hire that person, when it's the complete opposite. They should be doing less activities, but more of the dollar producing activities.
So most of us are very driven individuals.
Yep.
And also super controlling.
Yeah.
Right?
100.
So 100% controlling. Yeah. So that's a real setback for a person who's really controlling to just let go. That's like jumping off a building or something.
May I flip it around?
Yes.
Are you controlling or do you just have high standards?
I have really high standards. I'm not really that controlling.
Bingo. Okay, so I agree with you because
people look at it as controlling, but it's just like high standards.
Yeah. I want things executed at a certain level of perfection and expectation and in a timely fashion. My advice to people before they hire that person then would be, as you're doing your business, start articulating on paper, okay, this is my standard of expectation for once the offer is mutual.
I already have that. I did a whole entire checklist the second year I was in real estate.
Well, Ivy, then that's your standards. So then I'm not letting go of control. I'm having that individual execute my standards. And that execution of the standards, and we even explained to them, hey, these standards are pretty high, so you don't have to get an A+. We need an 85% on this.
Really?
Yes, because some of them are so detailed.
Kind of low.
Yeah, we're getting B's.
I guess C's get degrees, isn't that what they say?
Yeah. I value the action over the accuracy. And what I've found in business is if we get too stuck on the perfection, we don't get the job done.
That's true. Good point.
And we're allowing them to make mistakes and not be perfect by saying, hey, 85% is okay. That's how you would hand that off, is you hand it off. Let me give you the other mistake. People hand it off and then they run away. You have to come back and check.
You have to verify that it's being done.
Yes.
Before you get the phone call from the client.
Bingo. Okay. Or escrow or the lender or the inspector.
Hey, we're not closing because... So setting up a standard operating procedures manual from the very beginning is probably a great idea.
It's the most important thing you can do for your people.
You would hire your coach sooner. That's what you would do different. And you would, what else do different?
I would try to not get distracted. So...
that's really hard for you because I saw once on Zoom, you had like 300 tabs open on your... I'm exaggerating.
No, that's not an exaggeration. There's 64 gigs of RAM in that computer, so it can just keep running. The simple answer to your question is, what else would I do different is I would try not to get distracted. As real estate agents and as just leaders in business, right? High producing people are good at a lot of things. So we get attracted by bright, shiny objects. We get attracted by new opportunities. The more that you can stay focused in your dollar producing activity, the better you become. Let me also flip this over for a second. Another mistake that we make in real estate is there is huge riches in just the niches. So you need to stay in a specific part of the business and just keep doing that until you nail it. Here's what happens. They get a commercial client. They do that. They sell a condo. They sell a piece of land. They try to sell a luxury home. They drive, 2 hours away to sell a first-time home buyer. There's no focus in that business. If you're going to work expireds, work expireds.
Yeah, I did that for the first 5 years.
It's
I don't do it anymore. I don't know why.
But that's a phenomenal part of the business.
Yeah.
And if you're going to be an investor, just work investments. And I get it. Deals pop up, commissions pop up, but that's why you have team members.
So let's turn this around for a second now. Let's say that you are 70% sphere of influence.
Yeah.
Now the sphere doesn't focus on just one thing.
Yeah.
They will buy land. They will buy investment properties. They'll buy, rentals. How do you handle that with your sphere?
And that is what's limiting most people in their real estate business, is because they say yes to all of that. So I think the best way to handle that in your sphere would be to be a part of a team or join a team or create one. Because then what happens is if your sphere comes in and they want to go lease a building for their daughter's business. Oh, I don't do that. That's what Susie does. And then you just hand it over to that person and you keep focusing.
So if you didn't want to do the team thing, though, you could still do that.
You can still 100% do that.
Lately, I've been finding real estate agents all over the country for my people. I have one moving to DC. I have one moving to Cabo.
Yeah.
It's just Georgia, So with Keller Williams, though, we have that network and the ability to do that, which is great. And then I interview them and then I give them the top 3 and then they interview them.
Perfect. And however that process works, but what I've seen over 20 years, thousands of transactions, is the people who focus do more.
That's true.
And
how do you get rid of those distractions, though? Because they're coming at you, I'm sure, at you 1,000,000 miles a minute, right? Especially with all those web pages open.
Yeah. Well, with that and multiple businesses, you're getting attacked. You have to every day prioritize what is the top 5 things I'm going to get done in my business today. And you're working in the business, not on the business. And what everyone does in life is they try to take something and then they hand it to you and they say, hey, this is your urgent problem. That's actually what email is. Email is someone else's to-do list that they're sending to you and they're dumping it off of them.
See, I look at social media kind of like that. I'm sorry, but it's just a drag for my
it totally can be.
Right.
So then do it purposefully. Do it at a specific time. Set an alarm.
Time blocking.
Time block it. Get it done. Get off. Do the same thing with your email. Do the same thing with your follow-up calls. Do the same thing with your database management. Do the same thing with your own finances. So, that old adage of work will expand to the amount of time allotted.
That's true. Absolutely. Right before you go on vacation, you can do 20 times more things.
You're Superwoman.
Yes. I want to be Superwoman every day.
Then set unreasonable timelines with actual alarms or people to check on you. So I do both of those depending on the situation to force that productivity.
So if you have an assistant, having a strong assistant is good because they can come in and say, what are you doing? Get on the phone.
That's exactly it. Where's your to-do list? Are the dollar producing activities done? What's on there that's busy work? What do you need to get rid of right now? Give that to me. Let go of it. And then, as control people, they pry it out of our hands, but that good, strong assistant will take it from you and keep you moving towards those dollar producing activities.
And they'll just handle it for you.
Yeah. The last big mistake I would say that I made, I just simply didn't buy enough real estate. So even though we've been investing since the beginning, my mistake was overthinking deals, just not buying it. Oh, I'm not sure about this one. Oh, we don't have enough money. There's enough people in your network that do. It's a good enough deal. Someone wants to play with you. They want to play real estate. That's the other thing is I just overthought it and talked myself out of future potential.
But how many doors do you own now that you rent?
I don't want to necessarily go into that. I'd rather go into this idea of we will miss opportunities by not saying yes. And what we do is we say it's got to be perfect and it's got to work just this certain way. There's a property near where we live and I had the land verbally agreed to. Could have bought this beautiful lot. There's a nice, beautiful Rambler on it right now. And I could have bought the lot for like $110,000. And then they verbally agreed to it, and I just never sent them the purchase and sale.
Uh-oh. Oops.
And then later on, it sold for like 165, which was that was market value at that time. That number's probably almost 300 right now. And my son likes to tease me and remind me like, hey, remember when you didn't buy that right there?
Oh, no.
There's so many more of those. And so that's what I look at. I've talked myself, my family, our legacy out of future opportunities more than we've created. And we've created a lot of them.
Yes, you have.
That's a mistake. Even if you don't have the money, you know what a deal looks like. Okay. Someone would give you the money.
I just did that. Why not?
Exactly.
The question, though, is how do you talk yourself back into it? It's just one of those things that how do you know when you know? Or because you had to change that whole attitude about, yes, I will do it instead of saying no first.
It just wasn't something, we had talked about in our family. We hadn't talked about money.
Right.
We didn't grow up owning rental properties. That was a somewhat taboo discussion like it is for everyone. We all talk ourselves out of this. Society doesn't teach us this. So what happened over time is all of a sudden in the Great Recession, because we were doing projects, we had rentals, and then all of a sudden in the Great Recession, I'm negative 7 digits and we owe everyone money.
That would put anybody in a spiral, though. That's a lot.
It was.
Yes.
And what started happening was when I was like, you know what? I've talked myself out of too many deals. I would have more cash flow today. My pregnant wife wouldn't have to go work in a restaurant. We wouldn't be close to filing bankruptcy if I had said more yeses and less nos. So that was actually, to be honest, it was emotional. It was
How
deep.
did you, just one day it just happened?
No, it was being broke.
Being broke. What's so funny? When you're in the weeds, that's when you really get the best out of yourself, right?
Yeah.
It's true, unfortunately. That's why Mike Ferry used to say, go buy yourself a Mercedes you can't afford with payments you can't afford, and then you'll go to work to pay for it. So you have a huge team now. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Selling real estate.
Still doing the same thing? How big is your team?
I don't know that in my current stage of life, I'm not as concerned about how much real estate I'm selling or about how big my team is. The biggest thing that I'm concerned about is how do we create more passive income, more freedom, leave a legacy for my kids, society, and I want to leave a stamp. So I don't need more money. I want to just build more, help other people grow their personal net worth, and make a difference. So we'll always be selling real estate, but I don't know that I need to sell more real estate to feel accomplished. I want to own more real estate and help others own more real estate and then help others grow their businesses.
Yes, you are the MVP of the sport.
No, I don't know about that, but thank you. Thank you.
Anyway, thank you so much for talking to me. You've inspired me. I'm going to go get myself a virtual assistant right today, just to start. Thanks
for hanging out. I love answering questions. Also value our friendship. We've been friends a long time.
Long time.
Yes,
I know. It's great. So much has happened.
Yeah.
But thank you again.
Awesome.